Hi everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of Horse Deep Dive. I do a series over on TikTok called Horse Spotlight where I cover all of the horses that appear in Umamusume Pretty Derby in short 2 to 3 minute videos. But I thought it might be a really good idea to go more in depth into some of the more legendary horses here on YouTube. So for our first episode, I thought it might be a good place to start with one of the most legendary Japanese racehorses of all time, the Emperor, Symboli Rudolf. Symboli Rudolf was the son of a sire called Partholon who descended through French and British racehorses, and his mother was called Sweet Luna and was owned by the Symboli Ranch, which you can tell because they gave all of their mares the Sweet crown name. Sweet Luna was also the daughter of Speed Symboli, who was a legendary Japanese racehorse and was one of the first to ever compete in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe over in France. Rudolf was born on the 13th of March 1981, and he was named Rudolf after the German Emperor Rudolf I, and for this reason he was given the nickname Kotei or Emperor. He was the fourth foal born to both of his parents and was the only one who had a cool temperament, and he was well known by the crescent moon mark on his head. On his farm as a foal he was known as Luna, likely inspired by his mother's name and also the moon mark on his head, and apparently it only took him 20 minutes after birth to stand up. Rudolf debuted in racing as a 2-year-old in 1983, and it was known by this point that Rudolf was going to be special. His jockey Okabe suggested that he ran a 1600 meter race in just 1000 meters, suggesting he was incredibly fast. He won his debut race and the Icho Stakes before enrolling at the Miura Training Center. For his final race as a 2-year-old, it was debated putting him in the Asahi High Futurity Stakes, one of the few G1 races that 2-year-olds can race in. However, it was insisted that he be put into the Junior Championship instead. This is because this race was being held at the same track and on the same day as the Japan Cup, and they wanted to push to other spectators that Japan could produce great racehorses. How right they were. As 1984 began, Rudolf's jockey was given a difficult choice to make. Okabe had jockeyed the horse Bizen Nishiki, who was an up-and-coming racer and was supposed to be the rival for Rudolf in the upcoming classic races. Okabe had to decide whether he was going to race with Rudolf or Bizen Nishiki, and he ultimately ended up choosing Rudolf. This was against a lot of expectations. A lot of people thought he would pick Bizen because he was considered the stronger horse at the time, but Okabe said that the choice wasn't even a choice for him. It was obviously the right choice. Rudolf's first big race in 1984 was the G2 Yayoi Show, which he won against Bizen Nishiki. However, he did sustain some minor leg injuries, and as a result, he was put into much harder training as the Satsuki Show approached. Rudolf ran most of the Satsuki Show in 3rd place, but on the final stretch, he raced into 1st and took his first crown, beating Nishiki, taking the first of the Triple Crown races and also setting a track record. There was, however, some controversy surrounding this race because at one point, Rudolf and Nishiki bumped into one another, and as a result, Okabe was banned from jockeying for 2 whole days. I'm really not sure what 2 days was going to achieve, but who knows? I'm sure he learned his lesson. After the win at the Satsuki Show, Okabe held up one finger to signify that Rudolf had won the first of the 3 crowns of the Triple Crown, something that Yutaka Take later did with Deep Impact, another future Triple Crown winner. The approaching Japanese Derby, the second race of the Triple Crown, was nicknamed the SB Derby because it was anticipated that Symboli Rudolf and Bizen Nishiki would be the top competitors for the race. Rudolf was the favourite to win by a country mile, and only 21 horses were racing in this race, which is a lot lower than normal due to the adverse weather condition. The track was also in really bad condition due to a lot of snow, adding more dirt to it, meaning that horses that were more powerful than fast were heavily favoured in this race. Rudolf initially did not respond to Okabe's commands for him to speed up, but right at the end Rudolf bit down on his own and he ran straight into 1st and took the win, with Bizen Nishiki placing in 14th. Okabe held up 2 fingers for the crowd after this win. After this race, Rudolf suffered a few injuries to his legs and shoulders, which meant that he didn't pass the quarantine legislation to compete overseas. So after his Derby win, he was in rest and recuperation, and he came back to the autumn term with a refreshed body and spirit. He began it by winning the G2 Saint Light Kinen at a record time, which is the trial race for the Kicker Show. Going into the Kicker Show, Rudolf kept in the middle of the pack for most of the race, before in the final stretch breaking out and securing his win. I cannot overstate to you how monumental this win for Rudolf was. Not only had he won the Triple Crown, the 4th Japanese horse ever to complete this, but he was also the first ever undefeated Triple Crown winner, meaning he had never lost a race up until this point. He was also the first winner of the Triple Crown since the introduction of the graded race system, which was introduced that year in 1984. Okabe held up 3 fingers to symbolize that he had won the Triple Crown. Rudolf's next challenge was the Japan Cup, which would happen just a week after the Kicker Show. This was also a monumental Japan Cup because it would be the first time ever that 2 Triple Crown horses were competing against one another, as Mr. CB, who had won the Triple Crown the year prior in 1983, was also competing. Unfortunately though, Rudolf was not doing too hot leading up to this race. He had just come out of winning the Kicker Show, which took a lot of strain on his body. He was suffering from diarrhea, and he was also a lot younger than the other horses competing, meaning he did not have the edge over them. And going into this race, he was the 4th favourite, which was the lowest odds he had ever had. Mr. CB, the other Triple Crown winner, was up there as the top favourite, as well as the British racehorse Bedtime. But against all odds, it was Katsuragi Ace, the winner of the Takarazuka Kinen, who took the win and became the first horse ever to beat Symboli Rudolf. Rudolf actually ran a really good race at the Japan Cup, but Katsuragi Ace was well known for his runaway style. This means he was a front runner who would burst straight out of the pack at the beginning of the race and keep up that speed until the very end. Rudolf came in 3rd and was tailing Katsuragi Ace for most of the race, but he was too tired and just could not catch up with him, and Katsuragi Ace broke his winning streak. Rudolf would compete against Katsuragi Ace and Mr. CB one last time in 1984 at his final race of the year, the Arima Kinen. Okabe, his jockey, was probably a little bit scorned after Rudolf's first loss, so he did some research into Katsuragi Ace's amazing frontrunner style and used this information to his advantage. During the Arima Kinen, which is a very long race, Okabe kept Rudolf tailing just behind Katsuragi Ace in 2nd until the very end of the race, where they swapped places and Rudolf took the win. Rudolf became the first Japanese horse ever to win 4 G1 races in the same year, and for this triumph, Okabe held up 4 fingers. Rudolf also became the JRA's Horse of the Year for 1984, which was well deserved in my opinion. Rudolf began his 4-year-old season in 1985 at the G2 Nikkei show, where he was the 1-to-1 favourite and he won by a major margin, with Okabe never once taking his hands off of the reins. His next race was the Spring Tenno show up against Mr. CB for a 3rd time. Mr. CB, despite being an end closer, came right in front of Rudolf during the race, which clearly really startled him because he wasn't used to running behind Mr. CB. However, towards the end of the race, Mr. CB started slowing down because he didn't have the stamina to run near the front, and Rudolf passed him and beat both the other Triple Crown winner and his own half-brother. Rudolf became the first horse since Shinzan to win 5 G1 races, and Okabe held up 5 fingers. After this win, there were some major issues going on between Rudolf's team and the Symboli ranch. It was decided that both Symboli Rudolf and Sirius Symboli would head over to the UK to compete in the King George VI and the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, as well as the Takarazuka Kinen in Japan, but Rudolf was pulled out of both races because he had sustained injuries to his legs and shoulders. This made the owner of the Symboli ranch absolutely furious, and he actually resigned from his post after this outrage. But Rudolf's trainer sensed that the horse wasn't doing very well and needed some time to recover, which was ultimately the right call. Unfortunately for poor Sirius Symboli, the compromise from pulling Rudolf out meant that he would go over to the UK and France alone, where he suffered major abuse at the hands of the people that were supposed to be looking after him. Rudolf, on the other hand, underwent acupuncture therapy and made a full recovery. Still not at 100% though, Rudolf's next race was the Autumn Tenno show, which was a very unfavourable track for him. Rudolf started out late, but he made an astonishing recovery and got all the way into 1st place, and it was hoped that he would take this win. However, right near the end, out of nowhere, the 13th favourite rushed straight past Rudolf and took the win, and it was reported that after this loss, Rudolf went back to his stables and cried out of frustration. Even with this loss though, Rudolf's trainer stated that Rudolf was the exception to the rule, that there are no absolutes in horse racing because he is an absolute. After failing to win the Japan Cup in 1984, Rudolf returned again in 1985 to give it another go. Due to his fame as a Triple Crown winner and also the fact that he'd lost the race the year before, there was a lot of media attention on him and the race, and he was even compared to 2 Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe winners. The track was in bad condition due to bad weather, but Rudolf still won as the favourite of the race, the first time this had ever happened, and Okabe held up 6 fingers. His final race in 1985 was once again the Arima Kinen, and his trainer instructed Okabe not just to win the race, but to overwhelm overwhelm all the others. He won by 4 lengths to the double crown winner of that year, and he became the first horse since his grandfather Speed Symboli to win 2 Ari Makinens in a row. Okabe, for some reason though, did not hold up 7 fingers. Very odd, don't know why he did that. After winning 3 more G1 races that year, it was decided that Rudolf would be named the JRA's Horse of the Year again. This was a completely unanimous decision. 1986, in Rudolf's 5-year-old season, would be the last year that he would be racing, and it was a year full of major failings over the horse's health by both his owner and his trainer. His owner wanted him to compete in America in the spring and then head over to Europe in the autumn, but his trainer wanted to let him rest over spring and then take on Europe in the autumn. This caused a massive argument between both of them, and unfortunately for everybody, his owner won out this time. None of Rudolf's usual team went with him over to America, and his trainer was not invited to watch him and had to pay out of his own pocket to travel and see his horse compete. This was a really bad decision for Rudolf. He competed in the San Luis Rey Handicap where he placed 6th, which was his worst score yet. This was due to Rudolf having a leg injury and also the fact that the course was left-handed, which Rudolf did not excel in. Okabe had reported that Rudolf had been acting strangely before the race, and he suggested pulling him out of it, but he was not listened to. This cut Rudolf's time in America short, and he was taken back to Japan to be looked over, and the decision was made ultimately for him to retire. At his retirement ceremony, he wore a bib with the number 7 on it to signify his 7 G1 races. So, to recap on Rudolf's successes, he was the 4th ever Japanese Triple Crown winner and the first ever undefeated Triple Crown winner. He competed in 16 races total in his career, and of these he had a winning streak of 8 races at the beginning, which included 3 G1s. He placed first 13 times of his 16 races, and his lowest score was overseas and only a 6th place. A racing career like Rudolph's does not come around all the time. He was a 1 in a million horse and an absolute trailblazer for Japan in the 80s. So after his retirement, Rudolf stood for stud service, and he produced quite a few notable graded race winners. His most successful child by far is none other than Tokai Teo, who he produced with the mare Tokai Natural. Teo won 4 G1 races himself and is considered one of the most popular Japanese racehorses of all time. His other famous children include Tsurumaru Tsuyoshi and Ayrton Symboli, the latter of which took his crown name. Rudolf died on the 4th of October 2011 at the Symboli ranch at the age of 28, which is a very respectable age for a horse. He is perhaps one of the most revered and one of the most incredible racehorses in Japanese history, and it's no wonder that he has been dubbed the Emperor for his achievements. Thank you so much for watching this. I had so much fun writing this. There are so many incredible Japanese racehorses that I would love to go into this amount of detail about. If you have any requests for any future horses you would like me to cover, leave them down in the comments. They don't have to be from Umamusume, they can just be famous racehorses. I love researching them, and I would be very happy to take many of your requests. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!